I cannot comprehend what happened. A Salvinorin B ethoxymethyl ether trip report by Jomo, uploaded to earwid.org on May 2nd, 2019. This is stronger than anything you can imagine. To start off, I have many years of experience in chemistry. My job involves it, and I was always interested in it as a kid. Of course, I studied it in college. I've never really synthesized any drugs for my own use though, so this was a first. I heard of Salvinorin B ethoxymethyl ether online and did some research. After a few hours of work, I devised a synthesis method. The next day I ordered some Salvia leaves. They arrived in about a week. I quickly extracted the Salvinorin A and put it in a small vial. I went to my makeshift lab in my garage and got to work. It took a few hours, but I finally ended up synthesizing Salvinorin B ethoxymethyl ether from Salvinorin A, or at least I assumed. The next day I brought it to work and performed gas chromatography, mass spectrometry on the substance. It was Salvinorin B ethoxymethyl ether. Excited to likely be one of the first to experience this compound, I put the rest of the material in my bag and went home a few hours later. While I was excited to experiment, I remembered my previous experiences with Salvia and became a little hesitant. But I realised how rare this compound is. It needs to be experimented with. I measured out 50 UG and smoked it. No effects. Then 100 UG. Slight buzz. No effects other than that. I then decided to throw in 275 UG. I took the hit. I held it. Within 5 seconds I ended up feeling something. My knees started warping and stretched out about 20 feet and went through the door. I stood up and my head blasted through the ceiling, and before I knew it I was standing above my city. I could see each and every person doing their thing. I tried to bend down and look further, and reappeared in my house before disappearing and falling through my floor into an endless array of eerie sounds. I eventually reached the bottom and felt my body hit the ground. A creature walked toward me and grabbed me by the neck and said,
"You better know what you're doing,"
in a disturbing voice. Then he threw me and I landed. I stood up and realised that I was in the 1950s. The trip went from impossible events to me simply existing in a different time. Walked around on this street and found a newspaper on the ground. I could read each and every article. At the top it read August 6, 1953. I didn't know that it wasn't real. It was all that I knew. I could remember my life, but it wasn't mine. It was the life of the person that I was in 1953. I could remember my childhood, school years, first job, everything. I went into a restaurant. I walked to the counter and asked for a hot dog. The woman said no problem, and I sat down. A few minutes later she brought over my order. I began to bite in before I saw that instead of a hot dog between buns, it was my real self, wiggling between the bread. I freaked out, but didn't know who it was. I was wondering what was going on, because I felt like something was wrong in the person that I was during this time. I then began to feel lightheaded and everything went black. I then rolled over and I was back to reality. I had no idea who I was, what anything was. My ceiling was falling apart and breaking into little pieces everywhere. Anything that I looked at had a face and smiled at me. About 10 minutes later most of this subsided and I realised what happened. My mind was blown. This was an infinite amount stronger than my strongest experience on Salvia. I went and looked at my clock. Nearly 3 hours had passed. That's about all I have to say. If I experiment with it anymore, I'll be sure to write more reports. However, that is unlikely for now, because I truly cannot comprehend what happened.